Welcome back to Arise Exchange. I am Abby Owolawi. The role of energy availability and affordability in Nigeria's recent economic reforms was the core of discussions held by economists and CEOs that converged at the Nigeria-British Chamber of Commerce 2025 Economic Outlook held in Lagos on Thursday and centered around key sectors of agriculture, logistics, technology and power. Let's take a listen.
And we get excited. How do we fix energy, and this time around specifically electricity in Nigeria? My first answer is one, in the doing. And what do I mean by that? Execution. Listening to the guest lecturer, you understand. We had them say policies, plans that were submitted as far back as in the 70s. So what happened? Why are we still talking about them today? So execution, doing, the discipline or the act of doing, getting things done. And that is why for us in Transcorp Group, we have 3 core values: enterprise, execution, and excellence. Because we can say all, we can, and in speaking to execution, right, I don't want us to look at, long distance. For instance, we can start with reliability. That's key. Today, even the capacity we have, how do we make it reliable? Before you start talking of expanding, they can also go hand in hand, but reliability should be a low-hanging fruit. How do we make this capacity that we have today on the national grid? The best is 5,800 megawatts, 5.8 gigawatts, if you want to hear gigawatts, right? That's the best in terms of power that have been made available for 200, and you told us, the guest lecturer told us, 235 million today. So to make it reliable, right, we need to confront frontally those key infrastructure issues. That's to make what we have today reliable.
Yeah. By the way, Nigeria has a new energy program, which was announced a few days ago in Dar es Salaam, and it's a $32.7 billion program. The government plans to bring $15.5 billion to the table. The private sector, whether local and foreign, will bring about $12 billion, a total of 32.7. Now, the new energy compact, which Mr. President signed on, and a beautiful presentation to this behind closed door session, had a whole lot transformation in the power sector coming over the next 5 years. That was under the Mission 300 program. Nigeria is one of the 12 countries that unveiled that program in Dar es Salaam this week. How much of energy impact, what would you like to see done differently in the energy sector to support logistics?
The cost of energy actually affects the cost of logistics in terms of affordability. Good logistics entails efficiency and cost effectiveness. But when the cost of buying diesel from 200, 250 about 5 years ago is now about 1,000 plus, definitely cost of logistics has also rise to the point of, you have to consider whether you are going to start your own logistics to move your things, or you want to engage a logistic company to move your things. And not just energy, if you also look at our infrastructure, the decay on our road infrastructure, and meeting up with timely delivery because of insecurity, bad road infrastructure, also have an impact, a negative impact in the logistics sector. And to mention but a few.
They contribute about 80% of what we eat. They've done a lot, but they won't take us to where we're supposed to go.
If you are thinking agro-industrialization, if you are thinking food security, smallholders are not going to take us there. And I can draw parallel from what Professor Adedipe said earlier. If you look at developed economies, so today agri contributes, as of last GDP numbers, agri contributed about 29% to GDP. And we get excited because it looks like as if agri is contributing a lot. But if you really want to get to where the developed economies are, US, UK is less than 1% of agri to GDP. Canada is about 7%. If you come to the BRICS, your South Africa and China, less than 4%. If you get India, about 18%. What am I trying to say? Nigeria is 29%. The more we want to get into being a developed economy, that number has to reduce the contribution of agri to GDP. That's the foundation I'm laying. But what is going to drive the solid production that is like a value chain approach is what we are leading at the Odua Group, and we call it Agro-industrial hubs. Basically, that's our strategy. We believe that the smallholder system should exist, but on top of that, we are creating a parallel system where across different locations, we bring all the players together, everybody on this table. I bring logistics to a hub, I bring independent power to a hub, I bring mechanization to a hub, I bring all the infrastructure, so from seed, from planting, from processing, from storage and logistics. And that is the direction we need to go. We need to do more and more of that. We need to stay consistent on developing agro-industrial hubs, because that is what is going to deliver the food that we need to be able to be self-sustaining. Dr. said, talk about the three, crises, food crisis, energy, manufacturing, those deficits. We need to deal with it in order to move this country forward.
In terms of digital adoption, digital technologies, and what challenges and opportunities are there for businesses in Nigeria, even though the services sector will not really give us everything that we need, but at least we need you?
One of the biggest drivers of digital services is the smartphone penetration. And we're beginning to see, I would say, an upward trajectory in the increase of smartphone penetration, which is now sitting at around 50%. So that means we still have around 50% of the telephone users in Nigeria that still do not have smartphones. So we have to be very, very mindful of that fact. Having said that, the industry is currently going through let me use the word, a difficult time, which is mostly driven by the increases in all the cost input that we face. Still talking about energy, one of the biggest drivers of the telecommunication cost structure is the cost of energy. The cost to power the base station, whether it's coming from the electricity companies or it's coming from the diesel-powered generators. Those costs have skyrocketed thanks to ban hay. I'm sure everybody is familiar with the concept of the ban hay for what we pay for in terms of what we get from the distribution companies. But most importantly is really what we pay in terms of diesel. All of us know today that the diesel costs have grown from what it used to be around less than 200 naira. Now we're talking about 1,200. Just to give an example, the telecom industry consumes around 40 million liters of diesel every month. So at 40 million liters of diesel every month, if you were buying it at 200 naira before, and now you're now buying it at 1,200 naira, that is an astronomical increase in cost. Now, the reason why we're consuming 40 million liters of diesel every month actually is another conversation, because really any country that wants to develop has to move away from powering his site using diesel power generators to commercial power. So this is an opportunity for the electricity companies as well. I would say that one of the challenges in the electricity sector, even though I do not play in that sector, aside from generation, one of the biggest challenges is really the transmission and then the distribution. And then even though we are counting on the electricity company to support us in order to move away from diesel, then the electricity company also needs to fix their distribution infrastructure, otherwise the powers will not get to the base stations where we are in. The second major cost input has to do with the FX. 65 to around, depending on what kind of operation you run, about 75 to 80% of your capex cost is FX denominated. So your capital expenditure is 75% FX denominated. Then some of your operational costs are also FX denominated. So if you have a cost structure where the FX was pegged around 450, even though we know that's artificial, as it is, 450 or 400 naira to $1, now you're now sitting at 1,600, 1,700 naira to $1. That effectively means that your capex cost is going to increase astronomically as well. So those are the two existential crises that the telecom sector has found itself.
So what I observed in our debt position right now, that the stock, is that it is dominated by bonds. And then, of course, when you look at our external debts, you find that it's also dominated by multilateral agencies. And now the World Bank, IMF is very tiny. And of course, AFDB, those are the two big players there. So now if you pair that, you see that most of those loans are project tied, which is good for Nigeria. In which case you are not borrowing to fund recurrent expenditure, but you are borrowing to deliver projects.